So I'm here by the Steppenwolf. You can't quite see it, but under the tree, once I get to the other side, you can see kinda the Steppenwolf. But I'm gonna go down the street and you'll see the Royal George over here. The Royal George Theater. And then over here is last time I met with a black friend of mine. There was a restaurant here in the basement that was decent food. And I haven't seen him in a long time. He's a highly religious kid. But I haven't seen him in a long time. He used to own a wine bar too. Bin 36. But here, it's the Steppenwolf. And they need to put this as part of Chicago's theater district. Now here, the Royal George and that can intertwine on its website, the Steppenwolf, these restaurants. See, they don't put the restaurants around them. Here's a Starbucks. Or no, it's a Willow Road. But there's some other restaurants up here. And what they can do is integrate them, the Steffen and Royal George, with the restaurants in the community, just like on the theater district downtown. But in the theater district for Chicago, they list all the theaters. The Steppenwolf and Royal George as well. But on the site, it has theaters where you see theatrical plays, and then next to it, restaurant booking, and then next to it, hotel booking, next to it, Airbnb and Virgo booking. So when you book the ticket, you can also have Spot Hero there, and you can reserve your parking, you can reserve your dinner table, you can reserve, obviously you're buying your movie play, so you're going there, and then it's interconnected to the things around. And it says, would you like to purchase dinner before or after the show, or lunch before or after the show, right? And it asks you, and then it takes you to that, and you have the assortments. And because you bought the theater ticket, they have a sharing, and you get a discount. Yeah, it's a bundling package. So if you purchase, when you purchase the ticket, and if you go to the restaurant and book dinner at the restaurant, if you purchase a ticket at the theater, you get a discount going the other way. So the discount works in either direction, working together. Now, what also the Royal George can do, and I like this tapas place, Cafe Barbariba, and Rich Melman started it, and this street here has a ton of small businesses. I was in here soliciting these small businesses for business, for their benefit plans. Truly, trying to get all these small businesses right here on Hall Street, all the way down. It goes all the way down. There's unbelievable amount of small business. This is an unbelievable amount. It starts really back at North Avenue, and it goes all the way down past Fullerton. And this street has one small business after another small business. There's a small pharmacy, rugs, you name it. It is all kinds. And I must say, Toast, which is Slime now, okay? It was Toast, a breakfast place. That girl was awesome. I'm a big fan of hers. Here's Orange Theory, never been in, but you can see all these little businesses. And you know what? DePaul's department, truly, they can have an entrepreneurship program, and the students can work in these small businesses here, but also they can work in the Royal George from DePaul's theatrical department, the Royal George, the Steppenwolf, and other theaters, but right down the street. And DePaul can host plays there. Oh yeah, they rented the host plays from the theatrical arts department. And so here's DePaul University School of Music. They can use the Steppenwolf to hold music, truly musical events at the Steppenwolf or the Royal George. I don't know the seating capacity difference, but DePaul can rent it and use it to hold for their symphony orchestra. Say they have DePaul Symphony Orchestra or DePaul Philharmonic Orchestra. And I don't know what the difference between a philharmonic and a symphony is. A civic orchestra, I should say. But anyways, they can host it right down at the Steppenwolf and Royal George. So they can do this in downtown at the Chicago, the Opera House. They can rent out to the universities. When they don't have events, the universities can use it to put on plays for the universities. They have UIC, Roosevelt University, and that can use it. And so can they use the Chicago Symphony Orchestra to put on musical events for the colleges. When it's not being used, they get money from rental fees. But here, I'm showing you all the small businesses. And so DePaul, its entrepreneur program, can put students in all these businesses through what? It's work study for undergraduate and for people in financial need at graduate or the PhD level. They have work study, and they can supply work study, and they can work in all these little businesses like this Mexican restaurant. I like it. I've been in here a few times. And I used to go to Kingston Mines on certain nights to try to meet girls. And then I like this pizza place in the home of the Jumbo Slice. It's great how they did that with the pizza on there. But look at all these businesses. It goes all the way down to Addison and past Addison. This goes all the way into Wrigleyville. This is the biggest small business corridor in Chicago. This is the biggest small business continuous corridor in Chicago, Halsted. It goes all the way up to Randolph. You have all those businesses through UIC. It goes all the way up, way past North. It goes all the way up to Randolph Street, all just down Halsted. It is literally the single most dense small business corridor in the city of Chicago. And if you're a financial planner working around here, setting up SEPs, Simples, simple 401ks, here's the Fresh Mart. And so maybe I'll stop back after I make this video. If it's open, maybe it's not open. But anyways, never been in the Fresh Mart. But I used to eat at this Burger King over here. But look at all these small businesses. This is a continuous small business corridor. And what did I do? This is when I was with Jen. And I had this benefit thing that did benefit analysis that I was going to give to them for free. It was awesome. It was somebody who used to work with Bear Claw, who had this software that did an analysis and then did a business printout for each paycheck where it broke down all the benefits and different features of them and the employee cost, the employer cost. It broke it all down. It did a comparison analysis for them, and I would give it to the employees for free if they did business with me, if I got group benefit business. It was a great system, and I offered it. But again, I had my breakdown come to me. Here's Dexter Resurrection. This is where Jimmy Quinn's dad passed away at Advocate. And so you see this continuous corridor down here. And then here's a mall right here on Addison. I used to go to the DSW in this mall. And this used to be a sporting goods store. Now it's a Petco and a Walgreens. This used to be Sportmark. I used to buy sporting goods here. But you can see this small business continuous corridor here in Chicago. This is the longest. And as a financial planner or group benefit guy, I walked into all these. Even Domino's, they don't have a group benefit plan. It's individualized for the different franchise owners. And so you can walk in and get group benefits from Domino's. Truly, offer and so on. So here's Michael's and Marshall's and DSW, where I do all my shoe shopping, or used to. But see all these businesses? And we're heading down here. This is Belmont. Next up is Addison. And this heads right down into Wrigleyville. Now, this area is taboo and off for me. I usually go down Clark. I never enter this area. My whole life, even when my friend Costa was over here. This is like the Antichrist area to me. This is a very highly taboo area to me. I'm talking personally. I don't believe in sodomy. I don't want to get sodomized, and I don't want to sodomize. So I don't believe in their lifestyle. That's on them, but it is part of the continuous corridor. But this has more bars and everything else. But I want them to have a come to Jesus moment and change. I don't want them to change me. I want to break them. They need to be broken and remolded. They're flawed. I'm not flawed. And anything less is sacrilegious. So, anyways, they're part of this continuous corridor. This is Boys Town. I wonder what the rate of pedophiles is around here. Jeffrey Dahmer was a pedophile. He used to hang out down here. Do you know that? This is where Jeffrey Dahmer used to hang out. I don't know about John Wayne Gacy, but I know for a fact, reading through the trial transcripts, he used to come down here and pick up gay guys. This was his hangout. And Jeffrey Dahmer was also a pedophile. So, again, this was his stuff. He loved this area of Chicago. So I wonder how many pedophiles love this area. Truly. I used to have a friend live right here in Roscoe. I would go down to Clark. I stay away from this area. My whole life, this was something I avoided. You can feel free. I'm just telling you, as part of the corridor. But I would skip over and start soliciting on the other side. Somebody from the LGBTQ community can work it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm willing to give up market. There's certain markets I don't want to go into. Other people, that's on them. You have your choice, I have my choice, right? So I avoid that market. So, anyways, we're coming up, and you can see how it keeps on going down. But on the turn off here, and this used to be the police station. This used to be the Chicago police station right here. My next door neighbor in the condo I live with, Jen. The funny thing is, two white guys living next door to each other. He was married to an Asian girl who was a pharmacist, and she was awesome, beautiful, smart, intelligent, talented Asian girl. And I was with Jen, and he was a police officer right here. And guess what we used to talk about? He used to ride the bicycle. He talked about obesity in the police department and police not being in shape and not being able to do their job because they were fat and out of shape. He used to ride the bike all the time. This is a news station they opened up. They moved down the block. But he was very concerned about obesity in the police department. And we used to talk about it. And he didn't want any fat police officers. So he would always get bike patrolled to stay in, shape. We got along. Jen got along with them. I got along. And it was sweet being right next door to another mixed race couple. He was a white male. He was a white male Christian. I was a white male Christian, both with Asian girls. And then here's Wrigleyville, where my friend Kevin King, he used to manage a place over here by Wrigleyville. And then right here, Sports Corner, my friend Kenny used to manage. And then they bought the Ricketts, they bought all from George, who owns the Cubby Bear. He's in the real estate. He's a Greek guy. And he used to own one of the buildings, but the Cubs bought the buildings out. And then they have an aftermarket ticket broker here. Yeah, across the street, they buy all games. They should advertise in Wrigley Field. If you want to sell your ticket, sell it to our guys that buy game tickets. And over here was the ticket place. I forget what it's called. It used to be right over here. I think that's it. Baseball right here. I think that might be it. But anyways, the Cubs set up their own kind of like sports thing where they purchase tickets for sporting events. Not only Cubs games, White Sox games, Bulls games, and all that, but particularly they set it up to compete with those scalpers who work with the aftermarket tickets, people that have regular season. They can sell their tickets to the game to the broker while they set up their own ticket brokerage. I think that was smart of the Ricketts. And they've reinvested in this area. I think it's a smart play for their money. They're billionaires. And they went up with Gallagher Insurance, which is unique. We have Aon and Gallagher, and then we have Horton. And do you know Chicago has some of the largest insurance brokerages in the United States and in the world between these organizations? Now, this used to be a Tuscany's right here. Now it's a King, and they do chicken fingers. This used to be a Tuscany's. And the funny thing is, the guy, I went in there and we ate before a game, and he wasn't the best with his service and everything. And I'm like, I used to work for him, and then Stefani, and I knew his daughter better than I met Phil, but he owned Tuscany's. And I used to work for him in Wheeling. The reason that it went out, because the people managing it, again, and that's why Stefani's closed down on Fullerton too, who Herbie Brown, UB Brown, used to go to all the time when he came into Chicago, who is the basketball announcer. He knows Phil Stefani, and he knows his daughter. And the thing Stefani suffered from was quality management of his restaurants. Truly. He had good food, but poor management. He had really poor quality management. So he suffered from poor quality management. He was focused on the food. He owns Rivas on Navy Pier and that, but really poor quality management. Very good food, poor quality management. He needs somebody to help him with his management. The front of the house, they do a decent job in the kitchen, but the costing in that can be way better. I work for him, I know for a fact. And I used to work with the people that worked at Rivas, and my stuff with me and Bill were way more efficient than theirs. And so they have a problem with management. Not food quality, management. Here's Sluggers. Now, what you do here in Sluggers is you go upstairs to the batting cages. See, they have batting cages. This is where I used to practice. If you're in little leagues and that, they got batting cages up there. Now, they should have baseball and softball batting cages, but I used to go up there to practice hitting the ball in the batting cages at Sluggers. It's on the second floor. And this is where the last time I was at the Cubs game with Buckus and my friend Dean Patel and others, my nephew Little Larry, I introduced him to a bunch of my friends. We went here before the game. It was just the two of us. And then I used to know these guys from Stretch, and they own one in Lincoln Park. They sold that off and opened this one. I haven't talked to them in a long time. And so this is kind of nightlife. And then there's Dino's Pizza that has all kinds of exotic pizza. Like they had mashed potatoes, a cheese pizza with mashed potato topping. It was decent. They could have made better mashed potatoes, but anyways, it had mashed potato topping. And then my other friend, he used to Lindsay owned Redmond's that was around the corner, and his partner was an alderman from the city of Chicago. His partner was an alderman. I forget which alderman, but the alderman in this district was actually a partner, an investor in the bar called Redmond's. And then Lindsay went and worked for Randy Gerber for the W, and his significant other, Mary Kay, owns Mary Kay Salon in Chicago, and Mary Kay's sister works there, and her sister is who I used to get my hair cut by, and I had a big crush on her sister. But I used to work for Al's Beef too. So it was Al's Beef and Nancy's Pizza. So I worked for all these pizza places, and here's a black guy tailgating me. I guess it's just black harassment of me. It's not racism or anything. It just seems normal for black people to harass me and call me racist and everything. That's just a side note. But it seems like black people are seriously, consistently targeting me. They beat me up. They hit me in the cars. They call me racist all the time. From here to the suburbs, somehow black people are continuously targeting me. It's interesting. So here's was Redmond's. Now it's closed. But this is the Wrigleyville area. So I'm interested in how black people are continuously targeting me. And the funny thing is, they've done nothing for their own people. I've done more than any black man has ever done, including Martin Luther King, for his own people, for black people. I believe I've done way more than Martin Luther King. He brought a lot of things that didn't turn out so well. But c'est la vie. Here's Sheffield's with an outside beer garden. So it's funny how I worked so heavily in the Hispanic, the black, the Asian, the white community, working at the Children's Hospital, working for all these charities, and really talking across the country. And then I support international ones, and I've been putting them up and trying to market them and so on and so forth. But it's funny, these people don't do anything for the human race. They don't do anything for their own people, but they can open their mouth and terrorize me. They can tailgate me, they can berate me, they can treat me like garbage. How is that? So here's the Vic. This is the first Bruin View in Chicago. Bruin View. We used to go here for movies and beer. So I never been in there, wanted to go Cheesy's, but my friend, he owned the place right here. Let's see if his place, he's an Asian guy. I haven't talked to him in a long time. Let's see if his place is here still. I don't know. I don't know if his place is here anymore. So anyways, this is the Wrigleyville area. And so you have all these small businesses. I came down here for people that said they wanted to study with me for the CFA. It wasn't me. It was a guy and a girl. I met up with them. They fell through. Never was able to study with them. See, here's another racist white guy tailgating me, speeding around Wrigleyville. Truly interesting how that works. You know, all this love. I was born in the city of Chicago. Was that white piece of trash born in the city of Chicago? Truly. And what has he done for the city? Truly, I'd like to know. So, here's the Briar Street where the Green Man, the Blue Man Group was. Jen took me here with her cousin, a female cousin from Korea. She came in from South Korea. We went to the Green Man, the Blue Man Group. We hung out afterwards at the gin mill, and it was a great time. I had fun with her. Me and Jen and her cousin, who was female, me and the two Korean girls hanging out, and we went around town. And Jen told me her cousin said, thanked me and that for taking her out afterwards and showing her around and how much of a great time she had. And then she, after she got back to South Korea, she, wanted Jen to tell me that she was very thankful of showing her around and taking her out and making sure she had a good time. And she's a nice lady, but she's back in South Korea. So they opened up the Target on this corner. And so, again, in the Wrigleyville area. So all these people have big mouths and they don't do anything for their own people. Truly, I don't care. White people, I watch degrading them in that. Like I said, Hitler degraded white people. Putin degrades white people. Makes them look like crap. So, again, how to destroy an image. We've had some pretty good people doing it on all sides, pretty much destroying things. So there was a sushi place I used to go to up here. Hana, I think it was. And then on this corner, there was a Korean girl who used to work here. It was called something else. And I used to go into this place. She was a Korean female bartender. And I used to go in and I was friends with her every so often. I had a crush on her. That was after we broke up with Jen. I used to go in there and see her every so often. It's kind of like the Korean girl that was in New York City that worked at the ramen place that said she was moving to Chicago. And I had a crush on her. But I don't see these people anymore. So you get the L tracks, they come on this side too. There's another train line. And so you get a feel for the Wrigleyville. But the Ricketts should be working with the Citizens Committee, working with the aldermen to figure out how they're further going to expand this area. And then I'm going to go down to a place that the Ricketts could get involved with that has a lot of bands. They could also have stand-up comedians come in. And so it's the Metro Cafe, and it has two bars, the Smart Bar and the Metro Cafe, that's right. And the Metro has the bands, but it can also have stand-up comedians. Truly. You can have some stand-up comedian that can do stuff based on punk rock or hair bands or something that focuses on, it's a comedian who cracks jokes about musical bands and that, makes it funny and so on, but can focus on the music industry. But it's a way for them to get their name out there and so on. And a precursor, these are jokes, not necessarily I'm trying to demean them, and you put a precursor, but I'm using them as part of it, pointing out certain things. And so, again, disclaimer, and you can ask the musical act if you get approval to use their name. Truly. And that's how you do it. You're writing, you got to reach out to them and ask, can I use it? Do you mind? And do I get your permission? You don't want to be sued for slander and liable. So comedians need to reach out. That's why I said, Chris Rock, I don't understand with Will Smith. He should have asked permission from Will Smith and his wife that if he got approval. If not, then he tables it and uses another joke. So he doesn't want to get sued for libel or slander. And so Will Smith could have hit him with a lawsuit afterwards. But the whole point is, that's another way. He could have just said, hey, Chris, I'll catch you in court. I'm going to sue you for slander. And everybody would have been like, whoa. But instead of hitting him, he could have done that and really mean it. And it showed up in Entertainment Tonight. Will Smith suing Chris Rock for slander, right? So it could have been done that way. And so this is where, you don't want to look at me. This is where Clark Street Sports, they have hats and all kinds of Cub stuff. Really kind of cool. So I've been shopping over there. So I don't know what the price disparity is. And then I'm going to bring up Yahtzee's over here. There are two of them, one on Diversey, one here. And one thing I want to mention is they actually have some of the best wings in Chicago. So I'll mention that for Yahtzee's, it does. They have outstanding wings. And so I used to go in to Yahtzee's. I went in there once with my friend Scott Gertz, but I used to go into Yahtzee's on Diversey. Not this one, but on Diversey. A couple times for Cubs games I've been in here. I love their wings. So I like Yahtzee's right here. They have really good wings. So there's a little hot dog place that's decent right across the street from the Metro. And this hot dog place does gangbusters when the Metro, here's the Smart Bar, and here's the Cabaret Metro. And there's their little logo. My friend Pete loves it. My other friend John works there. He worked there for a long time. His tavern has been here. And so this is the Lakeview area. It's Lakeview / Wrigleyville area. And it heads up here on the go in the Gray Street down, and then it heads over to Irving Park. Then Irving Park, you got the cemeteries and that. And so they've been there for a long time. So, anyways, this is the Uncommon Grounds. But down here, you get my friend Jimmy Quinn. He grew up down here in a multi-unit building. He lived by Wrigley Field. He didn't take advantage of it, but do you think, see all these multi-units here? Do you think the Chicago Cubs ever reaches out to the community here and talks about purchasing Hello Neighbor discount, maybe a 5 or 10% for living in the area, and has fan base that's right near the park? Truly. Why not? If you live down here, a point of living down here, and I'll show you where my other customer, he lives, and part of living near Wrigley Field, people move in to be here during Cubs season. And so they move in here, and they do rent units here so they can have access to the nightlife on Clark and that, and so they can go to Cubs games. So lots of people move in here early spring and move out late fall. Truly. But they usually stay 1 year. And so they move in spring, and they stay more than a year. They go past the next spring, and they move out in the fall. So the fall is when people tend to move out, and also move out in the spring. So fall and spring, people move in and out of this area. I should say both. And there's a company that's up on Halstead, which I can show you, that focuses on renting out apartments in this area. That's all they do is rental. And a realtor can work for them, but all they do is rent out apartments. And people move in here to live here because they like it. And the Small Chevelle has great hamburgers. I've had them. They are really good hamburgers. And so is Jenny's ice cream. And there's Jenny's with the, right there, the round, that's Jenny's ice cream. It has really good ice cream. I've been the first to Jenny's on Sheffield. And so there's the Marquee Sports Network. And I think that's owned by WGN, right? Or is it by the Cubs? I forget. Maybe it's a joint venture. But we're going to go here across, and you're going to see the rooftops. So you get all the rooftops here. all these buildings, and they changed the firehouse and converted it. That's good. Oh, no, it's still there. But the firehouse here serves Wrigley Field just in case something happens. But where's a paramedics unit? There's the paramedic unit. So it has a paramedic unit wedged in there. So that's a good thing. And they can take care of issues in the ballpark. Even when a player gets hurt, there's the unit to take the player. But remember, they have to have a backup. If one goes out, one needs to come in the area during a game. So if one goes out, another one from another area needs to come in. But see how they extend it? They had to pay for air rights to be over the sidewalk here. They extend the bleachers, so they added more room. And here's Harry Carey's, and here's where I used to hang out a lot of times, Murphy Bleachers, with my friend Weiser and Tobler. And then I'll go straight up, but I'm going to go down. They close off the area. See these down here? My client lived down here. He used to work in the Chicago Stock Exchange, and then he became a pipe fitter. But he owns a beautiful residence down here, and he has another residence that he rents out. And so, he loves living in this area. There's some beautiful houses in this area. And you live by the ballpark, and, they get concerts and other things. And then they do the Winter Classic here at Wrigley Field. Sometimes they can move the Winter Classic between Soldier Field, Wrigley Field, and Sox Park. Each year, 3 different outdoor locations. Wrigley Field, Sox Park, and then Soldier Field. The Winter Classic for hockey. So they can move it around to those 3 locations around the city. So every 3rd year, it would end up at Wrigley Field. So going down here, I'm going to show you up on Halstead, where the Smashing Pumpkins used to be, and where the real estate office used to be. But there's a lot of great real estate around here, and I'll show you right up Addison Avenue after I show you how close it's to the lake. And just time it on the video how long it takes me to get to the lakefront. So you can get an idea. Nice church, big church, IHOP. I've been in this IHOP several times, sometimes just for coffee. Yes, IHOP should advertise, come in for coffee. Truly. Just like you go into Starbucks for coffee, you can go into the International House of Pancakes. My sister used to work at IHOP. She did, and the guys that owned it were Arab, and it was by 6 Corners, but my sister used to work for IHOP. And we lived in Deerfield, and she used to travel into the city and work for IHOP on Cicero. So my sister used to travel in from Deerfield all the way into the city to work at the IHOP International House of Pancakes on Cicero. They have a wing stop down here, and some people doing some jogging activities, staying healthy. But again, let's move over. I'll show you the real estate office. You know what? Let's see. It's up on, I think, Belmont and that. Yeah, it's further down. Let's go up by Wrigley Field. The lakefront. So I was just here in Wrigleyville. Now let's just go up to the lakefront. My friend Sylvia lived around here. She liked living around here. So she used to live around here, Broadway and Addison. I haven't seen her since 2016. There's a community building. They said they're building community, Third Space, the home of Third Space, a community building company. So learn more about Third Space. So here's the Ritz Cleaner. the luxury cleaner. So I've never been in there, but, you know, it's the Ritz, like Ritz Crackers, then the Ritz Carlton. So, again, it's okay. The sun's coming up over the east, and so you run into these areas. They should warn you about this, because at a certain time it comes up over the street and shines right down and blinds you. Now, I learned this in Tucson, because I rode my bike. When the sun was at sunrise and sunset, it would be at a certain angle, and people would not see the stop signs. Not so much the stoplights, they would miss the stop signs, because the bright light, they didn't pick up the stop signs. They still picked up the stoplights, but at Grant and Mountain, those stop signs, there used to be accidents at those intersections. See the sun coming up right here? So that stop sign back there, I guarantee you, there's lots of accidents. So at Grant and Mountain, they missed that because of the sun. They would miss seeing the stop sign and run through it and hit other cars. I learned just to wait for the cars to clear, because I didn't know if they were going to stop at the stop sign. I'm not going to get run over. I know this tendency, but no one does this with the Insurance Institute and that, and don't understand how the sun blinds people. And when the sun comes up and the sun sets, it blinds people down certain streets because it lines up perfectly, and down those streets they miss the stop signs. Not as much the stop lights, but they really do miss the stop signs. So they have to do something about that. Improve safety, right? And then you get a beautiful boating. The Chicago Cubs can have something to do with the Belmont Harbor. My friend John Zeef used to live around here. Truly, Belmont Harbor, it's right up here from Wrigley Field. So you could take your boat in, park it in the Belmont Harbor, and go to a Cubs game. After a Cubs game, get back in your boat and go out. But they can have cruises that stop in the Belmont Harbor, drop you off like the water taxi can. You can take the water taxi in, drops you off at Belmont Harbor, and you walk over to the Wrigley Field, or you take a short shuttle. Truly, an Uber or Lyft or a shuttle service they could have that meets the water taxi. Oh yeah, they know when the water taxi's going to arrive. It could be a shuttle that goes over to Wrigley Field. So, again, let's go up here by, the harbor. So, we're going to merge in here. And so, let's just take a look at the Belmont Harbor. Florida plates, usually that means rental car. Most people don't drive up from Florida. Illinois plates down in Florida means tourist down there, meaning they drove the car down. But Florida plates up here usually means that it's a rental car company. Because usually a lot of rental car companies were domiciled in Florida, as I showed you before, or if you were a part of my Facebook group. Lots of them were domiciled in Florida. I don't know, maybe it's for taxes, or I don't know exactly why, but a lot of rental car companies. I guess I can go this way. I've never been down this way. But this is the Belmont Harbor. Oh yeah, that's right. I've been down here for the doggy beach. So you have the harbor here, and Chicago Cubs players could have boats out here, and Chicago Cubs could do events out here, like a cruise to meet the players. Truly, it picks you up in the Belmont Harbor. Harbors can have places where the cruise ships can dock. Just because they're at Navy Pier, they can have a secondary stopping point in Belmont Harbor. So they could make this cruise ship friendly. And then it goes the Spirit of Chicago, takes you from Navy Pier to Belmont Harbor, drops you off, you go to the Cubs game, and then you pick up the Chicago Spirit of Chicago again and complete the rest of the cruise after the Cubs game. But the harbor can interface with what? The cruise ships. So again, they can interface and it bring more money into the harbor. So they have to figure out where in the harbor that the bigger ship could dock. But they can figure it out. The waterways are big enough for the cruise ship to come in. I think the harbor's deep enough. So here's, the harbor. And then you can go down Belmont here, or you can go up Lakeshore Drive, and I guess I'll go up and loop around Lakeshore Drive. But again, we're going down Lakeshore Drive. They're doing some scaffolding work on the roof over here. Right, that building right there. Some scaffolding up there. And AIDS Garden. Okay. So here you're getting a lot of, there's nurses around here. There's also the Diversey. You got the golf course and that, but right off of this harbor here, we used to meet up here for jogging with Chicago Area Runners Association by the Totem Pole. So we pull into Recreational Drive here. But again, it's only 45 on Lakeshore Drive, but they don't enforce it. So anyways, here's Recreation Drive. And I used to go down, and you can see the harbor here, but they have the golf course. You can go, and the tennis courts and everything. And so the golf course and tennis courts here, and there's parking, and then there's the sanctuary. I think it's for birds, but this is the totem pole. So I think this is one of the only totem poles, one of the rare totem poles in the city of Chicago. But there's a Native American Fest that can be held here around the totem pole. And so this is where you can have, a membership, your boat, and then you can have a membership to the tennis courts. Yeah, through Open Table or something, you can book the tennis courts, and they can also play pickleball here. So they can adapt the lineage to fit in for pickleball as well. And so I used to play tennis up here, and then I used to run here all the time. But they can intertwine. I never played on the baseball field here. But you have the outhouse up there. There's where the outhouse is, the restrooms here. So right here is where the restrooms are in that building, the public restrooms. The outhouse is right in that building, right there. But anyways, places to go to the bathroom, but they don't market here, do they? They don't have anything saying there's public restrooms over there. And they don't have cameras monitoring the public restrooms, do they? Why wouldn't you have cameras monitoring the public restrooms? So much more tennis courts. And then you have the Williams sisters. They could come down here and talk about tennis and, try to build out the Chicago tennis program. Or my friend Morrison, which I don't understand why he didn't get into the tennis world. He's into pickleball now, but he could have worked selling tennis balls and tennis rackets and worked for Spalding or one of the tennis companies. He's a 4-time state champ, men's singles state champ. And here's the running group, Chicago Cara. And so, again, he could have gotten into that, and he lives in Chicago, and now he's doing pickleball, but he could have been promoting tennis, and he could have been a tennis teacher. Just as his father was a tennis teacher, he could have been a tennis teacher, taught tennis in high school, and then had a tennis training academy. And he was a 4-time state high school champion. He played at Georgia, but he got injured. He played college tennis as well. And here's the golf course. This is a par 3 golf course. And it's right here. And so they're doing something, some beers after every round. But again, you got all the running groups and that. And this is about the time. So if you're an early morning person, or if you're getting off third shift, if you're getting off third shift, you could make the running group if they start at 6:30. Because third shift, you get off as 10 to 6, and there's a hospital and everything else. Take a half an hour for after your shift to get into your running clothes and get over. Maybe it's a 7 o'clock start, but it can start for third shift. It's not only for first shift people, but third shift people. So say you have a 6:30 and 7 o'clock start for third shift people. So they run afterwards, and running, you cool down, and it raises your metabolism when you go back to bed. So it's a good thing. So I showed that before. So you have to have a couple hours before you go to bed, but usually third shift, when they get off, they can go and exercise and run and catch the morning running group and run out, get their sun in, and then they can, do stretching and cool down, and then catch something to eat, and then, watch a little morning shows and that. And that's what they don't understand. The TV people think they want to be pigs. Why don't they catch the third shift people coming home? Those third shift, they get off at 5, 6, 7 in there. It's a stagger between 3 hours, usually 5, 6, and 7. And they watch morning shows, so they can go exercise in that. They catch the morning shows. They have breakfast. For them, it's dinner. Surely it's their dinner. Everybody else's breakfast. But the third shift people, hospitals right here, Memorial, they're open 24/7. You know that? Hotels are open 24/7. So they have third shift people. So again, those are the people you're trying to catch for the morning shows. So, and that's why I said if Chicago goes 24/7, it fills out the TV time. And so they catch some TV time from first shift, some TV time from second shift, some TV time for third shift, and all of a sudden now you have sizable groups watching TV, but not in big allotments, an hour or 2 hours at the most. But you're getting a ton of groups, and then students getting off of school, and then moms and seniors, and it fills out your 24-hour day. So remember, people working from home and so on and so forth. So again, the TV and radio on that don't understand when people are going to be in the cars between first, second, and third shift, how they take transportation. They can offer Wi-Fi connections on the bus. Who pays for them? Sirius XM Radio pays for them. Why? Because people tap in and can pay for it, or tap into their network on the bus. And so they can use it on the train as well. So it has Sirius XM you can tap into on the train and that. And so, again, it taps into your phone and that, but you have to be a registered user. And then they have to do biometric identification. Why? Because if your phone gets stolen, that way some bomber can't use somebody else's phone. So to stop somebody from using somebody else's phone for bombing, those phones have to be verified that can use the network. And anyone that isn't verified can't use the network. And the only way you can access is through biometric. So that means the person that owns the phone has to be using the phone. That means if they give it to somebody else and they use the slide, the pins, or they use a passcode to get in, it doesn't work. The app, the hookup, requires biometric and know your client, right? That's the anti-money laundering and everything else. And so the only one that can use it on the bus or on the train or on the plane, it has a biometric connection. And through SiriusXM, and they do background checks and everything else, working with law enforcement and Comcast and Verizon and everybody else, T-Mobile. And so if somebody steals your phone, they can't use it for terrorist or criminal activity because of the biometrics. It's not you. So it has to be you, and the biometrics verify you on the network. And if it's not you, you can't use the phone. I'm not saying that somebody might not be willing to give themselves up like suicide bombers, but the likelihood is very slim. And if you're doing your background check, and background checks include affiliation with terrorist organizations, like if you're with the Mexican Mafia, or you're with Latino gangs, MS-13 or whatever, they're civilian, but they're Mexican gangs and so on, or if you're with the Black Disciples, all that needs to be there. We need this information from elementary and high school. They need to notify who's a gangbanger. Oh yeah, who's in gangs. In North Glenbrook South, they had some Asian gangs. And me and Jen talked about it because we were worried about Charles, making sure he didn't get involved in any Asian gangs. They're small, they're not big, but there were a small amount of them involved in an Asian gang. And so the schools have to report that possible gang affiliation. And then the police have to research it. So it's up to the schools to notify. This stuff needs to be in their record. And then it says possible gang affiliation, verified, or no gang affiliation. And it was an inappropriate. You don't want to take it down. You say it was an inappropriate assumption. And after further research, because of these things, we misdetermined. So you can improve your identification process. So they need to know where you screwed up and where you misidentified when you checked out further that there was no gang affiliation or wasn't affiliated with a cartel or the Mexican Mafia or the Italian Mafia or the Russian Mafia or ISIS or whatever it may be, and how the mistake happened and how they misinterpreted and assumed association, but there was no association. So they need to know the truth. You never take it down. It stays there. It doesn't go against them. It shows how they were misidentified so they don't make that mistake and misidentify somebody else again. But elementary schools and high schools need to report that into their system. And then it has to be investigated. It has to be turned over to the Chicago Police or the Cook County or State Police, and they have to be investigated for affiliation with a criminal organization. Gangs are criminal organizations. So again, as much as I said about the Aryan Nation and so on, I want to understand how people get these sentiments and how they get these feelings and why people feel they're threatened. And if we're going to end this, you have to understand why people do these affiliations, what is missing and why they do them, and then how are they sometimes misunderstood. Here's the Boys and Girls Club I used to be part of, and they have a big fair here. And then basketball's right next door at Revere Park. I played football here. I never played softball here, but they could have had a basketball league. We never did. I played table tennis there. Here's where I found out. I used to talk to the workers here about the Deep Tunnel project. There's an entrance for the Deep Tunnel. It used to be right here. but there was an entrance right here for the deep tunnel in Chicago. I used to umpire here at California Park. Horner Park. Right across, also Gordon Tech football team, which is Paul Prep now, used to practice football here, Gordon Tech. That's where I was going to go because I grew up. Roosevelt had their home baseball field here. So Roosevelt High School had their baseball field here at Horner Park. Across the street is California Park and Methedricks, the ice arena, where you can have hockey teams. Like Roosevelt High School can have their hockey team. Roosevelt High School can have a club hockey team at Methedricks Arena. And also you can have part of the academics. They can have a figure skating club, a speed skating club, and many other things at Roosevelt High School. They can use Methedricks Arena. Their baseball teams over there, their football team can practice there as well. So they can practice at Gordon Tech used to practice there. Roosevelt could have practiced there as well. It's not too far from Roosevelt High School. They have a school bus that takes the football team over, drops them off, and then takes them back to the high school. So they can use it. What, are you going to hit me? It's funny how people drive like terrorists in the city of Chicago. And Costa warned me about Temporary Place. Those are the worst drivers. They tend to be, for some reason, they tend to be horrible drivers. So, anyways, this is going back into my neighborhood. But again, Roosevelt High School could have used California Park, not just for their Horner Park, not just for their baseball, but also for their football team. And their soccer team can practice there. And so Roosevelt High School can have many more things. I told my brother Carl that he should get involved with Roosevelt High School. He graduated there. My sister Ellen went there for a little bit, Roosevelt High School. She should get involved with them. I went to Patrick Henry. I want to get involved, but I'm in a bad place. I would get involved with Patrick Henry. It's my elementary school. So it's in this community. Here's St. Louis. Next up is Drake. This is where I used to live. So I'll go by my elementary school. But the funny thing is, you have Independence Park, which I'll take you by. Patrick Henry can have a swim team at Independence Park. Now, not a diving team. I think they have the springboard, and so it could be low diving, but not high diving. High diving, they have to go down the Whaling Pool, which is not too far away from Patrick Henry. And they could have a high diving team that practices at Whaling Pool. The swim team will practice at Independence Pool. It's closer. So the springboard and swim team practices there. And then there's, all kinds of water sports that they can take the kids over on the bus. And they take them over to Independence. And they do all kinds of swimming training and everything for the elementary school. And then the bus takes them up to California, and Patrick Henry can have baseball teams and everything else. I lived here, used to walk to Horner Park, and I played baseball at Horner Park. But the elementary school can do things and have leagues that go and practice and play at Horner Park, or they can practice at Independence Park. My bad. There's softball fields, baseball fields, football fields, tennis courts at Independence Park. I'm sorry, it's closer. So they can do tennis, softball, football practice for the elementary school. And I think Independence Park has basketball courts. In here, you have a gym that has a basketball. No seating, but they can have elementary school basketball teams. So they have a gym in there. I used to in the gym, and it has a basketball court. So the elementary school has a gym that has a basketball court. So now they can set up swim teams and everything else at Independence Park. And they can have a football team, a soccer team, a lacrosse team. Truly, And the elementary school builds it out and uses Independence Park. And then they can have all kinds of winter sports team, like a snowshoe. Yeah, snowshoe. Elementary school team that does snowshoeing. And all that can be done at Independence Park, right? It's right up the street. And it's a way to integrate the elementary schools into the park districts. But no one's ever did that. They never integrated the elementary school formally with the park district. Everything I did at the park district was informal. There was no connection between the park district and the elementary school. Now they can integrate Patrick Henry here, the elementary school, and integrate it for physical activity, after school education with the park district. They can have I Have a Dream or some after school programs at the park district. And they can do the same thing with the high school, integrate it with the park district. The high schools, the elementary schools should be integrated with the park district. The colleges should be integrated with the park district. Truly, not only here, but in Deerfield and that. We didn't integrate with the park district. And this is the bar. Just a side note, this bar right here, they had the jukebox. And in this alley over here, there's an alley back there between St. Louis and Drake. No, I'm on St. Louis. Between St. Louis and I forget the other street over there. That's where the mafia put the guy to sleep for stealing from their jukebox business. And so the mafia was big into the jukeboxes. They were making a fortune. Illegal business. And like I told you, what the mafia did, they just created a monopoly. And the bar owner could only take their jukebox. It was an offer they couldn't refuse. If they refused, they would be hurt. So they could only take their jukebox. So the mafia, unlike people say, all criminal. No. But they did use physical leverage. This used to be a corner store. Yeah, this used to be a convenience store. And the people lived on Drake that ran this. So this used to be a convenient neighborhood convenience store. So the mafia, and you understand criminal organizations, they do different things. So they weren't into drug running or anything like that. They got in like the movie Casino and that. They were involved in the casinos. They were involved in the restaurant business. They were involved in the entertainment business. And really how they made their money is by crowding people out. They were involved in waste management and that. So they strong-armed the contracts. That's why we have antitrust law. But what did the mafia do? They actually ran legitimate businesses, but the criminal element was the antitrust violations. So they would give you an offer you couldn't refuse, and that's what they did. So they weren't into prostitution or anything. And they say on the one they have Bada Bing in the one show, but the guys, they weren't involved in any of that. They were involved in a lot of legal businesses, but they did do bootlegging and other businesses. So, yes, and they were into stealing a lot of merchandise. Oh, yeah, they did a lot of truck hijacking. Jimmy Hoffa, the reason the mob was working with him, one, to raid the pension fund and use that money, but secondly, Hoffa supplied them with the information on the different shipments that were on the different semis. So the mob used Hoffa, and through the Teamsters would feed up what types of loads they were taking on what types of semis. Sometimes they would just stop the semi and they would just give it over, and they tell the cops they were, robbed in that, but they were working with them. Other times they weren't, and they truly robbed and sometimes killed. But Hoffa fed them all the inside information on what loads were in what semis and what to hijack. That's why they were in with the Teamsters, so they could hijack semis. And Jimmy Hoffa fed them all the information on what loads were being carried on what semis. Here's Independent Park, and you can see it has an indoor pool. That's where I almost drowned to death. Truly. And this is where I went for my friend John's funeral, right here with Rocky and that. So we went to the funeral there. And this is this area. I'll go down this way to the highway. But they can integrate, and straight up the street is the YMCA. And there's Patrick Henry and the YMCA I used to go to, and they can get involved with the elementary schools. And they should have enrollment and talk about their programs. And also they have a gym that's for adults. So the YMCA actually has all kinds of fitness classes and that. They have basketball leagues and all kinds of things, activity leagues that people can get involved in. They should hook up with the local Chamber of Commerce in this area and talk about all they have to offer. But they have more stuff that kids can do. So can the Boys and Girls Club show up at Patrick Henry. The Boy Scouts, the Boys and Girls Club could show up at Patrick Henry. It's by Horner Park. They can come over here and go to the different elementary schools and engaging the kids from the elementary school and see if they're interested in their program. So the YMCA can go into Patrick Henry. The Boys and Girls Club can go into Patrick Henry. The Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And then, like I said, that's a lot of programming that they don't offer, but they should have days they go, the parents can see all these opportunities that are offered for their children. And then they can talk about, through the Chamber of Commerce, all the stuff the YMCA has to offer. And the Park District through Chicago Social offers basketball leagues, flag football leagues. I played in flag football leagues. There's basketball leagues, there's softball leagues and all that. And then the YMCA has all kinds of indoor basketball. You play at the winter. They have an indoor basketball league. They have exercise and fitness and many other things at the YMCA. So these are things that people don't know about in the community that are available for them to stay in shape, to stay connected. And so doing 30 miles an hour, how fast am I supposed to go in the city of Chicago? All these cars, all these people, now you integrate the street with bicycles, and then you get the cycle driver behind me, right? The cycle driver behind me. So how am I supposed to drive fast in that? Isn't that a threat to life? So you're making frequent stops. You don't want to be hard on the brakes. You don't want to do fast acceleration. So, I don't know. 30 miles an hour might be too fast. And so, too many variables. With the bicycles, people are opening and closing doors. And you have to have proper response time with a bike. So you don't want to run them over. They have all those bicycles where people died getting hit by the car. Here's a police station that was here. They opened up a new one down the road. But you don't need to. You need to fix the lighting system. People should be moving slower through the city, not faster. Fix the lighting system so cars can move smoothly so they don't have to move as fast. And that way it takes stress. People don't have to worry. I can hit 25 miles an hour, and I can, in 1 hour, be 25. That means you can be in Deerfield in 1 hour at 25 miles an hour. It's about 25 or so miles out of the city. So in 1 hour, you can be in Deerfield. So not much stress, so you don't really need to go faster. The only reason people want to go faster is because they catch all these different traffic lights. They catch these different traffic lights. So the traffic system doesn't work, and it stresses people out. Here goes the psycho, right? So there's the Admiral Club. I've never been in, but it's the totally nude women's adult entertainment. And so the thing is, down here, there's other elementary schools. And so the city doesn't really know how to integrate itself to make things comparable to compete with the suburbs and these communities, and these communities seem underserved. I used to go to Marie's. I like Marie's Pizza. Truly, we went there for different birthday parties and that, to Marie's Pizza. There's a lighting store up here that I used to go to. But the city of Chicago doesn't intertwine that. And then what do you throw in? How many times have you ever seen the public library go into the elementary school and talk about its programs? How about the public library going into the high school talking about the programs it can offer to the public high school students? These are all after and before school programs that they can add on this extracurricular that they can do educationally. We're talking about bringing up the educational level, bringing up the fulfillment of people living in the neighborhoods and everything else, making sure they have access to more fulfilled life. Like my mom went to the library in Buffalo Grove. She learned Facebook, and she learned social media, and she learned other programs. So again, I don't know why the city of Chicago isn't intertwining these things with the high school, elementary school, Chamber of Commerce, the library showing up at the Chamber of Commerce, telling what resources it has for business owners. It does resume classes. It does job training. Truly, it has all kinds of business education. And it can go into the Chamber of Commerce telling what types of resources it can offer. And this is all within the city, within every area of the city. So from elementary school to high school to the city colleges to the non-city colleges, like University of Illinois Chicago is in the city of Chicago, but it's not a city college. So again, integrating the park district, the libraries, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the Boy Scouts, the YMCAs, and all of that. And then you have your gyms and all that. They have to figure out how they're going to do their stuff. But again, all these areas, this is Mayfair Park. All these areas have incredible opportunity no matter where you live. And what does this do? It brings up all the housing value. So no area is drastically superior to any other area. They think they're resource deprived, but they don't understand they're not resource deprived. So no particular area has more resources than any other particular area. It's just they're not aware of them and don't utilize them correctly. And so they think they're out, or they think they're underserved or represented, but they're not. They just don't know how to use the resources. The churches are a resource, like all the youth groups and adult education they can do at the churches, and senior groups and so on. Bingo is a great thing, but you can have bingo for kids, and you can give away toys. You give away toys to little kids, and they can win, different toys playing bingo. So bingo can be for adults and for kids. But again, the churches are another resource, and they should be talking at the Chamber of Commerce. And then the word should get out through the community. But you have to have, this is why Chicago and other areas used to have Mayfair Park newspaper. Not the City of Chicago newspaper, Mayfair Park. It's small for just the businesses in Mayfair Park. Chicago Tribune can buy them, or the Daily Herald can buy these small community newspapers, and they're not that long. You don't want to make them long. It's a weekly that comes out, and it works with the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Commerce is the one that produces the different area newspapers. And so you get to know what's going on in the area churches. You get to know what's going on in the high schools, the elementary schools, the library, and everything shows up in your little Mayfair Park community. And the city of Chicago, through the alderman's office, they let you know certain things, and they pay for the publication as well. It's a joint venture between the chamber and churches and Chamber of Commerce in the city of Chicago, and they have, each of these have their little paper, and the Chicago Tribune can own them. They have the presses, they can print them, but it has just local paper. 5 pages, maybe, not much more. It's not the Chicago Tribune. You don't want to take away from that. Something people can get through very quick, and it can have a social page and some social information, truly. But again, it's to allow them to know what's going on, and it has a website. True, they can go to the website. It has a social media page on Facebook, and you can tap through to the website through Facebook. And so it's a way to source these communities, to interact them, to show them that no, and it supports housing value, it supports civic and feeling and community awareness. If there's criminal activity in the community, they'll know about criminal activity, drug problems, traffic problems, other issues within the community. And so everybody will be well aware of what's going on in their community because it comes out weekly. It's a fast read, 6th grade reading level, so even kids can read it. Truly, it's a family paper. It's a community paper. So there's things for the little kids in there. There's things for adults. There's things for singles and family and seniors. And so it's not the Chicago Reader. That's Chicago. And it's focused mainly on restaurants and bars, and mainly restaurant and bars and that in Chicago Reader, and theatrical, the theater district in that. It's more of an entertainment paper, the Chicago Reader. These are just local community papers that are creating awareness. And so, and there's linked to social media and a website, and you can see this, and that helps housing value all over the city of Chicago. So no one's under-resourced. And they have all these things, and now they're able to tap into them, and they're made aware of them. And realtors can show this and say, here's Rogers Park, here's Mayfair Park, here's Streeterville, here's this area, and these are the communities, here's the churches, the synagogues, the mosques, and so on. Here's the demographics of the area. Do you want to live in a Polish community or German community or Hispanic community or black community or so on? And here's the information. Here's where they live if you want to live in an Asian community. Truly. Or do you want to mix in a more mixed race community? Some people want to live in a more mixed race community. And so they can show you where they are. Here's the DMVs, Department of Motor Vehicles, and that. I come down here. I did the change of title here when I bought my brother's car, and I had to go here, and he sold it to me for $1. So anyways, I had to change the title and that. They want to know how much I paid for the vehicle and so on. And then what was fair market of the vehicle compared to what I paid for the vehicle. And my brother, he undercharged me. But they need to know what the fair market value of the vehicle is. So anyways, that goes into the Department of Revenue because they have to charge you taxes, and that doesn't mean you paid $1. It's still transfer taxes are based on the fair market value of the vehicle. Even if he sold it to me for $1, I still have to pay the transfer taxes and that on the vehicle. And that's based on fair market. So here's the bus depot. So in the paper, it can talk about what's going on with the buses and trains in the area. And they can have a section when the buses run and the apps for the city CTA buses, and when they're adding more service, when they're adding less service. So on Elston Avenue, they stopped service at a certain time when I was a kid. They had no night buses on Elston Avenue. I know my mom worked second shift, have to walk up and walk home. She couldn't take the bus because there was no bus service. So as this one says, not in service. So again, connecting the community, understanding all of this, the Old Town School, and .org, the Old Town School of Folk Music. That's up there. That's another park right there. And it's Portage Park, I think, or Wells Park. It's Wells Park, right by there, where I used to do boxing. Oh, yeah. My brother did Golden Gloves training, and I went over to Wells Park to train for boxing. That was when I was a kid. So, again, got to know what programs are getting offered at what park district. And they can have martial arts programs. Oh, yeah. You know, you don't have to rent a standalone martial arts. You can work with the park district and offer Hapkido. If I was talking to my Hapkido instructor, talking about opening up in a different Chicago field houses, martial arts for youth, for young kids, for teenagers, for preteen teenagers, adults, seniors, truly, and do it through the park district. And so they don't have to open up a standalone thing, and they could offer it through the park district. So self-defense courses and so on. And again, these are things that can be offered, and they can have a robust park district, and, you know, this integrates into the elementary preschools as well. Oh, yeah, the preschools can get involved in brownies, and I think they have the Cubby Bears. Before you get the Boy Scouts, they have the Cub Scouts. And so I think Cub Scouts might do preschoolers. And so, again, these can be all run through the community newspaper and everything. Here's another elementary school right here. And so, think about how much opportunity. So when they say in the South Side they don't have this, I've extensively been all through the South and West Side. They have lots of parks, lots of park districts, lots of libraries, lots of churches, and so they have lots of resources. No reason to be part of a gang. Just because they're not taking advantage of them doesn't mean that they're not there. See, there's a difference between being not there and not taking advantage of them. That's why the Bible says the fool burns. You're just a fool. And you allow your family to get destroyed, your community to get destroyed, your lives to get destroyed because you get involved in criminal activity because you don't think the resources are there. They're all there. They're all there for everybody. Just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean they're not existing. And this is the problem. People think they don't exist. They do exist. So again, there's a high school right up here. Where's the nearest park district for the high school to tap into to extend its offerings? Where is the nearest public library? Where's the nearest YMCA? Where's the nearest blank, blank, blank? It has a nice field here, soccer, football field, and lacrosse field. It's really lacrosse as well. And so, again, everything is there in every single one of these communities. Wright Junior College is right down the street. My partner David went to Wright Junior College, went from Wright Junior College, transferred after 2 years from Wright Junior College, which is a community college, transferred into Roosevelt University, completed his accounting degree at Roosevelt University, graduated from Roosevelt, and started with Arthur Andersen, a Big Four accounting firm, or they say Big Five accounting firm. And he started off on a great career. And he transferred, he went to Wright Community Colleges over here. It serves both Park Ridge and Chicago area right here. So Wright Community College. And then he transferred after 2 years to Roosevelt. Why? To cut down on the cost of college. So he only had to pay 2 years to a more expensive. The community college, the first 2 years were very cheap. You save your money. And so when you're getting Pell Grant and that, and MAP Grant, you know, when you go to community college, you can bank that. bank it. If the community college is less costly and you got leftover Pell and leftover MAP grant, bank it. And save up for 2 years going to community college and then use it to help offset the higher cost of the 4-year institution. Some people need that way to be able to get a 4-year degree, but when you're in the community college, guess what? The balance you get is you get an associate's degree before you get your bachelor's degree. So you finish the 2 years at a community college, you get your associate's degree. And you move with your associate's degree, and then you get your bachelor's degree. And when you graduate, you have 2 degrees, an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree. Wow. And you didn't have to take a minor or anything else, and you still have 2 degrees, an associate's and a bachelor's. So, again, David should have 2 degrees. He should have had his associate's degree from Wright and his bachelor's degree from Roosevelt. I would assume he got 2 degrees. So again, this is a way to use the resources, and like I said, bank the extra Pell Grant and MAP grant and use it to pay for the last 2 years of your school, which will be higher cost at the university. So again, these are ways that you can provide for yourself that people have no idea about, that can make them wealthier, wiser, happier, more fulfilled. And so I don't understand. I get highly confused of why you want to do this criminal activity, why you want to terrorize me, why you want to hurt me, why you want to deprive me, why you want to lie to me and beat me and torture me and call me a loser and put me down. I'm not trying to do that to you. I only act out of self-defense. But some reason you want to terrorize the hell out of me. But this is anti-gang, this is anti-criminal activity, this is anti-poverty, this is anti-loneliness, this is improving health, this is anti-poor health. Truly, getting people engaged, meeting people, being civically active, being involved in the community, and so on. It fosters all good things. It fosters a good life. You can have an incredibly fulfilled and fulfilling life. So again, it gives you all of that and then some. So I'm going to leave the video here as I'm heading up to the end of Chicago and the start of Park Ridge. And I'm coming up on the Hill Spring Suites. Now, when I was, this is early in the 2000s, my brother gave me a lead. And I went to the Hill Springs Suites, and he referred me to a black gentleman who worked at the Hill Spring Suites. It's a Marriott property, and I offered him financial services. And he told me that he wasn't interested. I could have done his 401k, looked over his benefit book, helped him reposition things. I had a lot of value to offer him, but he turned me down. Now, he was a black guy that my brother Carl introduced me to. But he decided not to work with me. Well, not my loss. People think it's my loss when you turn me down. Like Jen, when she abandoned me, that I'm the one that's truly going to suffer long run. It's untrue. She will.